Welcome back to Bloody Elbow. Today I am joined by Aiemann Zahabi, who returns at UFC 315 to take on Jose Aldo. Aiemann, I remember when you found out about the news about this fight, you had said that you didn't really expect this to be the case. I know that Aldo was kind of potentially a name that people were throwing out after the win over Pedro, but now that we're a little bit closer to the fight, has it kind of sunk in a little bit? Or has there been some moments during the camp where you're like, I'm fighting Jose Aldo?
Yeah, you know what's funny is that he has such a fan base that even like friends of mine or like acquaintances and stuff, they always come up to me. They're always like, "Listen, we want you to win, but don't hurt him too bad." I'm like, "What are you crazy? The guy doesn't care about me, man. The guy's coming to rip my head off, man. I'm coming to rip his face off. You know what I mean? There's no taking it easy. It's all business. Listen, it's all business. I'm an athlete. I'm a professional athlete, and we're gonna have octagon. After that, we'll be friends."
Yeah, I know that as well. When you spoke about getting this fight, you said that before you agreed to it, you had to quickly run it past Faras just to check that he was all good with it. I'm sure that it must be fascinating for him to get to break down a guy like Jose Aldo, who I'm sure he's kind of broken down plenty of times without realizing it, just because everyone has watched Jose Aldo fight at this point. So I'm sure it's a fascinating puzzle for him to try and solve as well.
It's the second crack at Aldo for us. For us, we watched Aldo when Kenny Florian was going to fight him, and I was Kenny Florian's main sparring partner for that. And even when Kenny saw the announcement, he messaged me right away. He told me to get him for him. So, that's something we're all excited to do too. And like now, my new teammate Rob Font had fought him also. I actually think he did super well against Aldo. Like especially round one, he was doing great until the last 10 seconds where he got dropped. Him getting dropped kind of changed the whole dynamic of the fight. So yeah, I got a lot of guys around me who've watched Aldo, analyzed him, tried to figure him out, fought him before. So yeah, we're putting all our heads together, and hopefully this time we beat him. This time we get him, guys. This is the time.
When you look back at that experience of training with Kenny ahead of the Aldo fight, were there kind of things that you uncovered about Aldo and his style that maybe you didn't know going into that surprised you when trying to replicate him for Kenny Florian? Because Aldo does have a super distinct style that I imagine most people would be able to explain to people if they didn't know. But I imagine there's a lot of subtleties and things like that that you picked up through doing that.
Yeah, definitely. One thing, I think he relies a lot about on his speed, and I didn't think that so much to with the Kenny fight. I didn't realize how quick he was till Kenny fought him. But now, we're taking that into consideration how fast he actually is. So, he's strong, he's durable, he's got a lot of things going, but I think speed is his best asset.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, and I maybe didn't expect this, but that comeback fight against Jonathan Martinez when he returned to the UFC, it didn't look like he'd lost an inch of pace at all. I know that the Batista fight didn't go his way, but that Martinez fight, I think, really showed that, just because he's been gone a couple of years, this is very much an Aldo who is still, like you said, he relies on his speed, and it still works for him. Clearly, like the guy
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah, and Jonathan Martinez is no chump. I think he's really good. I think he's a good fighter. And, I think he beat him every round. I think he did a great job. And then he rocked him in round three. It could have potentially finished him in round three. So, yeah, I got my hands are full with Aldo for sure. I'm not looking past him whatsoever. But in the end, he's just a human being, man. And I think Batista made him look more human. And I think he's still beatable. I think Rob Font made him look human too. Like Rob Font closed up his eye in that 5 round fight. And I spoke to Rob Font about the fight. And he gave me some pointers to look out for too in the octagon with Aldo. So we're all set. We're ready to take him on. I'm not afraid of him. This is a big moment for me, and I'm hoping to capitalize on it.
Is there clear differences, do you think, between the Aldo that fought the likes of Martinez and Rob Font compared to the one that you prepared for back then? You said then about him hurting Martinez in the third round that he maybe could have poured it on him to get a finish. And I think an older Aldo, admittedly, he was fighting a lot of five rounders back then. So maybe a little bit different. He used to pace himself quite a lot. But there have been some changes over the years with Aldo's style, even though if he still does fight in a very similar way.
Yeah, it was interesting that I see. It seems like he doesn't throw the low kick as much.
Mm.
That's one thing that's like really apparent. Even Conor McGregor when he went to boxing and he came back, he stopped kicking the same way. He started. It's like almost like when they retire to go boxing, they fall in love with boxing, and they become slightly more oriented towards throwing hands instead of throwing kicks. But like in the end, like I'm ready for him to low kick. Like it would be stupid for me to go and not be ready to block low kicks, calf kick. Even though I do to throw less than he retired,
Yeah.
regardless, because it's still one of his tricks, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've done that so many times where I've tuned into an Aldo fight and I'm just waiting for him to start throwing them, and then he doesn't.
Yeah,
To the point where I started to question: is it a strategical thing where his opponents are waiting on it as well? To the point where
mhm.
they might be thinking about it too much, which allows him to have more success in other areas. But like you said, you would be crazy to go into a fight with Jose Aldo and not take that into consideration.
Yeah, it's an impossibility because it's not something that he needs to practice anymore. Like if there was one of the fights I was watching, I can't remember which opponent, but his corner was begging him to like go to the low kick, go to the low kick. And then he finally does it. He destroys the guy's leg and turns the fight around. Then it opened back up his hands. So like even if he doesn't use it round one, let's say I go out round one, he doesn't throw it much. It doesn't mean he won't pull it out in round two, and it doesn't mean if he doesn't do it in round one and in round two, he won't pull it out in round three. So like no matter what happens, I have to have it in the back of my head. He can chew up my leg at any moment, so that always be ready. You know, it's like fighting a guy who shoots some of the time. You know, if he doesn't shoot right away, it doesn't mean he won't shoot later. You have to keep it in the back. Like when I fought Javid, I knew he was gonna shoot. It was just a matter of when. When was he gonna go for it? And he didn't shoot in round one.
Mm.
And then he did four takedowns in round two, you know. So it was like, but I was ready for it. So it's kind of the same situation for that low kick, and I know he loves to do the right knee up the middle. So we're ready for that, and ready for his right hand, ready for his body shots. You know, just a dangerous striker. And one thing that he hasn't lost power. So I'm expecting to fight a. I'm expecting to go to hospital. You know, I'm expecting Saturday night. You know, it's gonna be a bloody mess.
A big talking point since this fight was announced that a lot of people have chimed in on is the way that Aldo's been booked since he's come back. Right, we've seen him
Yeah.
fight Martinez and Batista, two newer names to the top 15 of the division. Yourself just got a ranking after Pedro Munoz. What do you obviously a huge opportunity for you? You're never going to turn down the opportunity to fight in Canada against a legend like Jose Aldo. But are you surprised that he isn't maybe fighting? I mean, he's proven that he can still hang with the newer guys in this division. So I don't think it's necessarily surprising from that standpoint. But there are people out there that are like, I want to see him fight fellow legends, people from his era, even if he is still proving that he can fight these younger guys. Are you a little bit surprised yourself about the fact that these fights are coming together for him?
No, I've been for a long time, and UFC doesn't care what you think they should do. They do what makes sense for them. They do. They put everyone on the chopping block, and like you have to fight for your spot, no matter who. In that sense, it's very merit based in a way, and given that he lost Batista, and I know it was arguable. I'm not saying, oh, he lost for sure. He got beat. Blah blah. I'm not saying that. I just mean like the fact is that he lost in the end. In the end, the judges gave it to Batista. Okay, and so they're making him fight behind somebody behind him, not someone ahead of him, which kind of makes sense in terms of UFC strategy thinking for matchmaking. So like now that I think about after I received it, like I'm happy because it's such a huge name. It's nice to see Zahabi next to Aldo. Okay,
Mm.
that's nice. For me, it's a positive. It's a huge win. You know, like all I have to do is go out there and perform. All the pressure's on him. Losing to me is a lot worse for him than me losing to him. So the UFC is basically telling him, like, listen, we know you're a star. We know you're a big name. We pay you the big checks, but you lost one, so now you gotta fight a guy who's won five. You know, like I don't, you know, a lot of people, I don't get a lot of love and whatever, but I won five. You know, so they're giving me the opportunity. I just, you know, they're making him fight for a spot. In the end, it makes UFC sense. You know, and I'm sure it breaks a lot of fans' hearts, but hopefully, I win over a lot of fans after this fight.
When a lot of people think of the Bell Center, they of course think of Georges St-Pierre. I know that he had some insight into the Pedro Munoz fight. I believe he complimented your jab, which I think is about as
Yeah,
high a compliment that you can possibly get in this
yeah.
sport. Has he chimed in at all throughout the preparations for Aldo?
Well, I wanted to be the first one to tell him about Aldo, so when I called him up right away as soon as we said yes, and he told me that he's only human. The biggest mistake I can do is put him on a pedestal. And that he bleeds, he gets tired, he gets hurt, he has two arms and two legs and one head. He's not a god. He's not, he's not. There's nothing supreme. He's just another guy who fights good, who trains hard, who has a lot of fight IQ. He's like you, but doesn't mean he's not beatable. And I think the first time GSP fought Matt Hughes, he put Matt Hughes on a pedestal, and he was basically explaining to me not to do that with this opportunity. So just go in there and fight him like I would fight. He's like, just be yourself. There's more than enough. So I'm going in there with that.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to be surprised when they see this fight, given the narrative around it. Aldo as the veteran, you being one of the newer guys in this top 15. When they see
Yeah.
your age, which I don't mean in a derogatory sense, the
Yeah.
simple fact of the matter is you haven't been fighting that much. So whilst you are one of the older contenders in the division, you are still one of the newer top 15 contenders in the division. 5-fight win streak, all of that. This past weekend, we had Alexander Volkanovski break the infamous over 35 curse. And I know that it's a little bit different, right? Volkanovski's been fighting at the highest level for quite a few years now. And there was this whole narrative there with his losses and things like that. But does that, what was your take on that? Seeing a guy finally break that curse and being like, hey, just because Volkanovski's got some years on the clock doesn't mean he's not one of the best guys in the world.
That's exactly how I feel. And he said the most important line after the fight. He said, "Adversity is a privilege." And like since the Pedro fight, I've been working with a mindset coach, and he helps me reframe things a lot. And that's basically what it is. Is in the end, I I don't believe what people think and what they say fights for my opponents, and it doesn't fight for me either. In the end, they have to fight me, and I have to fight them, and it's only me and them in the cage. So all the opinions don't mean anything. All the hype, the flashing lights, being the Coco main event, being at Bell Center, all of that has nothing to do with the equation of it's me versus Aldo. And I obviously I respect Aldo as an athlete. He's accomplished so much. I'm hoping to accomplish a portion of what he's accomplished. But in the end, it's going to be a chess match between me and him. And I think we're both elite level strikers. And it's going to come down to who can figure out who can adapt to who throughout the fight and get ahead in the fight and cause more damage. I'm looking to cause a lot more damage than he can on me.
The last thing I wanted to touch on, we obviously had the news of the next title fight that is going to be taking place in your division with
Yeah.
Merab Dvalishvili, rematching Sean O'Malley. A little bit of a surprise reaction from fans, I think, just because Sean hasn't fought since that loss to Merab. I know that he's got his reasons for the rematch, and that is ultimately why it's been put together. Give me your thoughts on that one. How do you see it playing out? Can Sean make this one different enough on a relatively quick turnaround for a rematch?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a couple of thoughts. My first thought on the fact that they made the match, I find it odd because it makes it seem like Merab is the challenger
Hmm.
because after he beat Sean, Merab went on to fight again and risked his title, right? He took a risk, but every time you fight, I don't care who you are, every time you fight, it's a risk because you can lose, right? And that's nobody wants to lose, right? Nobody wants to lose.
He
And
was
if he
the
would
he
have
was the
lost,
underdog as well against Umar.
oh, so then there you go. I didn't know that. I don't really watch the odds too often, but and then like if you would have lost to Umar, it would be weird that Sean gets a title fight, right? Wouldn't that be weird? And so it's kind of like for me as like somebody who watches UFC, like in the end, the UFC does what they want. They make it make sense. They know the numbers better than all of us. So in that sense, it kind of feels weird because it makes it look like Sean is still the A side. That's what the one thing I find that's weird. The other thing is, do I think Sean could win? Yes. Okay, and I'll tell you why I think so. Because in the round five, when he teeped him to the body,
Hmm.
Merab was running. He was hurt, man. Listen. I I I think he's great. He's world champion for a reason. But if Sean O'Malley's team can find a way to attack him to the body earlier, weaken him to the body. We've seen other champions lose, getting hurt to the body, getting tired early. Maybe he can't wrestle as good if he gets beat up to the body. Maybe Sean found something that we didn't figure out before. So if his team could build a game plan around hurting him to the body, not getting taken down and whatever, there's a chance. I'm not saying there's no chance, but there's definitely a chance. And obviously, I think Mirab can beat him. He's done it before. He's got a great team. He can game plan too. But I think there's more of a chance than the first time around.
Absolutely. UFC 315 should be another special night at the Bell Center. I know a lot of people talking about your fight like it's the people's main event. You and Aldo should be special, man. I appreciate your time and all the best ahead of May 15th.
Thank you for doing it, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.